Hey guys, I'm putting away all my gear from hurricane work, and I thought, oh, you know what? I've got a loan discussion video that I never posted. So I do have a video just discussing the final thoughts, wrap up stuff from Alone. It all seems really superfluous now. Like, that's done and gone. So I don't know if it holds any interest to any of you guys. But it seems like a waste to not post it if it's sitting there. It's a long one, and maybe you'll find it interesting. You know, maybe there's some thoughts and that'll be good. So I'm not going to waste it, leave it on the computer. I'm going to go ahead and post it. But I did just get back from North Carolina, and my head is very much not in the Alone space right now because it's more of in the relief work space. And I'm really grateful that I got to go down. I hope everybody will keep praying. This is just a reminder, like, keep praying for folks in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. There's a couple takeaways from it that I'll just put up. And also, I'll stick a few videos of the hurricane relief stuff on here. I don't take a ton of videos when I'm doing stuff like this, so there's just a few. But I'll put a few things there in case you're interested, and then I'll play my Alone video. But basically, this is just a reminder to keep praying for everyone and keep trying to support folks down there, because the takeaways are it's a much bigger disaster than we think. It will go on longer than we think. But the positive is that the local people have done the hero's work. They've self-rescued in so many ways and rescued their neighbors and checked on each other. And you just have to admire that. So I would call them the heroes. Anyways, here's a couple videos of that stuff, and then I'll play my Alone wrap-up thoughts. Getting down in towards Asheville, North Carolina, and finding a lot of neighbors who have checked on their friends really well. I really admire that in people, to reach out to one another, but it still needs a lot of prayer and a lot of support down here. It's totally catastrophic. 360 degrees around me, even up on these hills. Anybody that lived in a valley is destroyed, but these valleys are just so demolished. This is ridiculous. The amount of mud to wade through just to check on these houses. I'm gonna check on this house up here and see if there's anybody there, but it's just knee-deep mud everywhere. This house hasn't been checked on. There's no sign or tracks around. We'll go see if there's anybody up here. Starlink communications from the United Cajun Navy. We're gonna fly up the mountain and set up a point to communicate for a lot of workers, cut through the trees and get the folks up there. Thank you to all the people who are funding stuff like this. Look at all these supplies. We got stuff for babies, for the families that are cut off. This is special to me because I just had a new baby. I love it that we can get stuff up there for folks that are cut off. Thank you guys for praying. Pray for us in Jesus' name that we can help folks. That's all. So yeah, here go my thoughts to wrap up Alone, and I hope it's not like completely pointless at this late date to put this up on here. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hey guys, let's talk about Alone Season 11 one more time. If you've been following along with my discussion of the Alone journey, you know that I've been promising to divulge a little bit more about some of my thought processes. I know that maybe Team Timber wants to know, like, really, why'd you make this decision to go home in the end? So let's talk about those things today. But firstly, I just want to look around me and rejoice a little bit about just the time of year that it is. Starting now, this is my favorite time of year. Magic is happening in the woods. I'm here in Indiana, and we just have a mix of wooded ridges and cornfields, and it's beautiful land. It's wonderful at this time of year. You know, the leaves are just starting to turn red and yellow up here. They're falling down here on this path. I just heard a deer snort a minute ago over here on this hill, and it reminds me that in just a few weeks I'll have this bow and some arrows, and I'll be out there sitting in the woods just enjoying to my core what this all is, what it all is to me. You know,
I couldn't be happier than when all this starts to take place and that cool hunting wind starts to move in and you smell it and you know that it's time to hunt. Can't explain it. Now that wind hasn't moved in yet because here in Indiana it's still oppressively hot. It's close to 90, I think, today. But look at this, look at this. These colors right here. Somewhere between these two colors is the color of happiness. It's in there, in that yellow, reddish hues in there, the brown. That's the color of happiness. That's the color of some of my best childhood memories when all my huge family would be together doing something harmonious and happy, putting up food. We would have sorghum. We'd boil off sorghum in the fall. And we'd have a big field of sorghum cane like this, and you'd have to go off and get to strip off all the leaves off of every stalk and then press it and squeeze the juice out of it, boil it down. It's quite an affair, and just some of my best childhood memories all happen right at this time of year. These details, growing up like this, are details that you'll get more of in my book. If you get my book, it should be available on Amazon worldwide at the middle of October. That's coming, so just a little blurb about that. But I just love what's happening this time of year. It just feels like magic. Every day is magic. And it brings me right back to Alone. Let's talk about Alone. I want to go first over an extra little tidbit. What was my favorite item? We talk so much about the 10 items that contestants bring. We evaluate them, we look at charts, and I want to tell you that the winner doesn't usually boil down to what 10 items he brought. The people that can manage something like Alone can get to the end with a variety of 10 items. A knife, a multi-tool. You can do it with either one. An axe, a saw, both, a gill net. But that being said, the 10 items are critical and interesting. The 10 items dictate how easy certain tasks on your journey are going to be. Hopefully because of that, we choose correctly. Well, what was my favorite? Now, by favorite, I don't mean my most important. I mean the one that when you're using it, you get the most joy, or you just feel the best. My favorite items changed. When I first got there, you'll remember, I think it's episode 2, but I just got off the chopper, and about 10 or 20 minutes later, I zap a squirrel, and I'm using this bow right here. And then on day 14, I kill that moose. Now, there was a lot of other kills there, squirrels and other things like that. But this bow was my favorite item for a long time. I just loved it. I used other things more, but every time I grabbed this bow and went out scampering around the land, I just felt so happy, so good. So this bow was my favorite item. But there came a point in time when the snow was so thick and movement was so hard and animals were so gone that I still carried the bow everywhere I went, but there was not a lot of shooting. And at that time, my favorite item began to be something that I used in my shelter. I'd have my fire blazing. It was warm in Fort Moosehead. Maybe I'd have my shirt off because it would be so warm and I'd be feeling good, and bubble, bubble, bubble. There's food cooking over there. And that would bring in my favorite item, which was this cooking pot. I would just look at that cooking pot and I would think, what would I do without that? It is my favorite object in the world right now. And then I'd open the lid and I'd drink some of that tea or get out a boiled fish or some boiled moose jerky or whatever. Lard, hot lard to drink. This is a cast iron pot. It's very heavy. And on all of my expeditions in the world, I would have never dreamed of taking something like this because I would be moving for miles, dozens or scores of miles, mountaineering and stuff. And this thing is very heavy. But on Alone, you kind of set up a camp and then you're not taking your stuff around with you, and that changes the game entirely. I was so glad to have a heavy pot like this, and I might talk about this more in a 10 items video, but I'll tell you what. The heat retention that this pot offers, so critical when it's 0 or 20 below 0. And you cook a meal, and it stays warm long enough for you to eat it. And I'll tell you what, that is such a great boost mentally and emotionally, is just the heat retention. Your meal stays warm. You pull it off the fire, and you set it there, and it's like, it's staying warm, and you're eating it. You're trying to eat it slowly to savor each bite, and it's staying warm. Whereas the thin little metal pots, take them off the fire, boom, it's cold. That was my strategy, and this was my favorite item in the second half of Alone. So that's just kind of a little tidbit. Now, I want to begin this way. What was successful about my alone game? You know that I didn't win and bring home the money to my family. You guys know that if you're at this part of the journey, following along with my videos or with Alone. Does that mean all was lost? Does that mean that I did poorly on Alone? What does it mean? What was successful or unsuccessful about my Alone game? Now, firstly, it's not a game to me. And that's a difficult thing that I have to remember, is that it is a TV show and it is a game. And it is okay for it to be judged that way. And in a game, there's a winner and there's a bunch of losers. But that's difficult for me to remember because Alone is actually a life. And life isn't quite like a game. Life is very multifaceted. So anyways, I'll just say things that I think are different or special to me about my Alone experience and outcome, my Alone game. We see a lot of contestants bulk up and they'll have 50, 60, 70, 90 pounds on them that they take into the wilderness. And yeah, I tried to bulk up a little bit like that. I thought it would help, but I couldn't do it. And so what to me is successful about my Alone strategy is that I got to the end with really what I could attain and achieve survival-wise. Not with extra that I brought with me that's an expendable resource being used up and would eventually run out. Yeah, I used up some body weight for sure, mostly hydration-wise. I couldn't have gotten by even 1 month using off my reserves because the reserves weren't there. I went into Alone weighing 3 pounds more than I weigh right now. The reserves weren't there, so I think that's meaningful to me. Does that make it better? Does that make me better than anybody else? No. It's just more along the lines of the experience I wanted, and I think I showed that I could do that. It was pretty successful. I got plenty of protein. I'd go so far as to say I got the most protein that's ever been gotten, between 52 fish and that moose and rabbits and squirrels and such. But I gobbled it all up. It all went away, just used up. Let's hit some extra things that are probably missed. Throughout all my videos, I've tried to present feelings and things that would be missed, and I could present them for all the contestants. But in this case, there's 3 of us left, and I wouldn't even presume to try to present things that are going through Dub and William's minds through episodes 10, 11, and 12, because it's very private and very individual, and I'll leave that up to them. So I'll focus on what was different from me, and I'll go back even a bit to the early episodes. One thing that you won't notice on the show is that after that moose kill, I'll put a picture here. After that moose kill, the moose is on the ground, and I'm working really hard to butcher that meat and haul it all back to camp. I didn't make a fancy system to carry this meat with. I just looked at it, and I was like, I've got to get you to camp. And so I just put it on my back. And I had that rain jacket, so I knew that I could wash that rain jacket. But what ended up happening was I would just pile meat on my back, just pile meat, and load after load. I got so drenched with blood for 2 days. I was so bloody and so just soaked with animal juices that I could smell it just as I walked around. And mostly it's on the rain jacket. And I could take that rain jacket off and wash it in the end, which I did after I got all the meat carried. But man, I would have been a snack to a grizzly. But I felt so primal at that point, like a caveman that had just climbed out from inside of a mammoth, like butchering it, from the inside out. I felt like that because I was so bloody and stuff. That rain jacket really helped out. I washed it up and then washed all my clothes up. But for that couple of days there, man, it was just awful. It was just awful. It was very primal. I don't know if the camera could have really got in there and it included some scent and some what was really going on. I don't know if everybody would have had the stomach for it because it was pretty bloody. I think that we've talked a lot about things that get missed, and we've talked a lot about the percentage of time that showed, and I haven't seen a breakdown of how many minutes from each contestant were showed, but what I think is that in the end, it boils down to about each of us have just over 1 minute per day. 1 minute per day that we were there on the land presented on TV. And that's a crazy statistic. Oh my goodness. That definitely puts it at less than half of 1% of the footage. So as you go throughout your day, if you're out camping or doing survival, whatever, imagine 1 minute. I'm glad I didn't know this while I was filming. It would have hurt to know this while I was filming. But in the end, that's how it works. Imagine, you're bushcrafting, you're like, oh, this is cool, I can do this, this is cool, this is cool. And then think 1 minute is going to be showed of the 8 hours, 10 hours of work and fishing or whatever that you just did. So I think that's kind of how it boils out. And that's a fact that's kind of missed. It's easy to miss while you're viewing. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting fact I want to throw out. As far as food lost to animals, in total I lost 1.5, a little less than a half of a fish, and a third of the moose heart to animals. So, my two food caches that I build, the first one to keep the meat cool, the second one to keep it safe, they end up fairly successful. A mink got in the first one, that's where he ate a third of a fish and a third of the moose heart. And then the other fish I lost to, I believe, an eagle. Because I was putting it on stringers at first, the fish could get up to the surface, and I think an eagle came down and pulled a fish loose. It was kind of like a 18 or 20 inch pike. And then I developed the system of putting the stringers on poles down to hold the fish underwater so that they wouldn't be stolen. And then none of them got stolen. So anyways, total food lost for me was 1.5 fish basically, and a third of the moose heart, which is about, I don't know how much weight, but 1.5 pounds of meat. And so the food caches worked out pretty good, and my food preservation and stuff worked out pretty good that way. Another thing that's missed, I thank God for things a lot on the show, but something that's missed is I thank God for every animal that I kill and every life I took. Yes, I do have this weird tradition, superstition, weird thing where I have this tattoo with the teeth on it, and when I would kill a squirrel or a rabbit, even if it was 0 degrees out, I would put some blood on the tattoo. That's just something funny that I do. Don't overthink that. But every single time I took out an animal, I would hold that thing up and thank God for it. Just tell him that I'm so grateful for its life. And I think that's important. It was important to me. And another thing that I did that doesn't come through is that I can't remember what episode this is on, but I have the hair. It's headless, looks gruesome, but I'm talking about life is very special. At the end of that, I was impressed by the fact that I didn't want to kill one extra animal other than what I just needed to get to the day that would be my day. Whatever it would take. At that point, I thought the day that it would take to win. And then later on, when day 82, when I was convinced of what I was going to do, I knew it was that day. It was just my day, my day to die, my day to check out. To get to that day, I prayed a prayer and I asked God, only you know how this future is going to play out. So stop me from killing anything else besides what I'll eat to that day. And the only thing I had left over after that day was just dried moose jerky, which I brought a lot of it home and shared a lot of it and things. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I through the 70s and stuff, and I was like, not finding any hares and things to kill. I thought of that, and I thought of that prayer, and I was like, is it because I don't need these things? Does God know that? Does he know that I don't need? Because I prayed, don't let me kill one other thing. If I kill an animal and I don't need it, and I walk out of here and didn't need its life, I won't be very happy, So stop me from killing anything else. So that's just an interesting thing. The smoke problem for my shelter. You'll notice that I just don't talk a lot about it in the end when I have to repurpose the moose hide and protect the inside of the shelter from sparks. And then my range hood is down. But I just want to say that it wasn't that big of a problem after that point. I think the couple differences, as the temperature falls below 0, it really dries out the wood better. The moisture is squeezed out of that wood, and it burns a little better with a little less smoke. We were in a swamp there, so there was a lot of smoke, but it helped a little bit after that temperature really dropped. It dries out the wood. And then the air differential outside to inside helps to draw the smoke out better. So it just wasn't so bad. I just got by just fine, you know. So I know that's a question that's come up, like, what? You didn't say much. What happened to all that smoke? Did it kill you? No, it was okay. I want to address a couple other things that came up throughout the duration of the show. Is that the way I explain things on camera while I'm there, you know, I explain in great detail sometimes. And I've seen positive and negative comments about that. Some people really love it because they felt like they were there, and that made me really happy. That's what I wanted. I wanted everybody to feel like, people all over the country to feel like they went on that hunt, or they knew just what was going on when I'm cutting sticks to make a project or something like that. So that makes me really happy when I see those comments of people that I felt like I was there. And I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted. That's what TV like this should be about. You should feel like you're there doing it. And I've noticed other comments that are like, what, he explains things so much, it's like he's posing as something. But I used to be a teacher. For a few years, I taught linguistics. After I graduated from college and before I started doing overseas work, I taught linguistics. And I think that some of those habits just come up in me. I like to see understanding take place as I present things, and so I can over-explain that way. My wife is on me all the time about over-explaining stuff. She's like, no, I got it. You don't need to over-explain. It's my private battle I have to do, is to try to not to over-explain in life. And in addition, I always thought of my boys, my two boys, Levi and Elliot, sitting there on the couch, and I wanted them to have a deep understanding of everything that took place. So that's why I go approach the show in that way, to just try to explain things really thoroughly or too thoroughly. It's aggravating to some people, I know. I want to get down to what the story arc of my journey on Alone means. And basically, I think this was presented by the producers, but I just want to recap it. You know, when I went out there on Alone, I was a mess inwardly. So much chaos had been taking place, and so much death that I'd been around. I could put pictures up on screen right now that would tear your heart out. Places that I've worked overseas with my family, trying to do water well projects or playgrounds for children and build things like that. And then, basically conflict would take place, and a lot of our neighbors and friends were killed. My brother died not long before the show, late 2021 or mid 2021. A lot of my friends died after that. And, I know guys that handle this so well. They just rush from one conflict zone to the next, never flagging, But for me, I had just really, really gotten to a state inside where I was just a mess. And I knew I needed something. I needed something like this. This ties into the end, what happens in the end of the show. When I was dropped off, I've talked before about how I felt zero drop shock. I've been in a lot of stressful situations before, so that helped, and I didn't feel any drop shock. But what I didn't feel is what surprised me. I figured getting dropped off, because out here in the woods is where I'm myself. I feel so happy and well. Out here with the yellow leaves and the animals and the hunting, I just feel so happy. And I figured that would happen right away when they dropped me off on the land, but it didn't. And I've discovered that everywhere we go in life, we take our thinking with us. And you do, I do. We all do this as humans. Whatever we're going through, we bring it with us. And I brought all these things with me out there onto the land at Alone, and I was really surprised by what I didn't feel. This flood of happiness, this release of tension, this boom, I'm a wild animal now, day one. It just didn't happen like that. And it took a while. And I just set to work. I worked like a maniac, worked hard, too hard. And I just kept on feeling nothing. But I kept on asking God, just work it out for me, help me to figure it, to see life again in a good and new way. And, on and on, I went, and I would talk to the camera sometimes about this death or that situation, about the turmoil that I had about what I should do for my children and family. And on about day 40, I just realized that all of it was gone and that I was seeing life. I think about somewhere in the 20s, sometime after I smoked the moose, late 20s, about the time I did that Fort Moosehead ceremony with the fire and stuff. I really started living then. And then without thinking about it, you know, I just processed stuff and put it away. And there came a time when the ice froze up and started to collapse. Boom. Big ice can sound really loud as it cracks and collapses like that. It can sound, a lot of it around my area sounded like there was a lake somewhere that would be cracking, and it sounded like artillery a few miles distant. So much that I stepped out of my shelter and I was looking for muzzle flashes. It sounded so much like artillery, but I was so calm and so well. It didn't bother me at all. And then I knew that I was turning a corner, you know. And by the time I came full circle on there, I felt so well inside and so grounded in life that, yes, I still have the memory of every death I've ever been around. I have the memory, but that's the thing, is that it's just memory. And I know that a lot of veterans, you know, I hope a lot of veterans watch this show and maybe even my YouTube channel. You know, a lot of veterans have this thing where it's not just memory. It's a dam of unprocessed rawness, that the dam is a protection system that's built against it that keeps you well. But the dam can burst in private moments or just in situations. What was different for me at that time was that there was no water built up behind that dam anymore. There was no need for it. And that changed. That's a big thing that just changed for me at that time. And I hope and wish that through the journey that I took to find that kind of relief, where there's only memory in the past, there's not a flood of unprocessed data. We can call that PTSD, we can call it whatever, I don't care. But that's, at the end, I think that's what it is. It's a flood of unprocessed data that's hard to face. Anyways, it felt wonderful to look back and see that now it's right. It's how it's supposed to be. It's memory. It's memory now. And I'll never lose those memories. And some of them will never be good memories. But being just memory is what's good. And so, to me, that's a big part of the why and how and what alone means to me. Is that whole deal right there. And that brings me to the end. Why did I tap out and go home when I clearly still had food? I clearly still had my health. You know, I was worried about frostbite, but in the end, I didn't get actual frostbite. I drank that lard, and my circulation was coming back a little bit. That was nice. So why did I leave? You know, you can go into something in life being convinced that you need a certain thing, and then throughout it, you can find out that what you need is something else. That can happen, you know. When I went there, I thought, I need one thing only. I need to win this, or else I won't even know who I am. I want to be the winner of this show to define me. Well, one thing that we come up against in life as humans is we realize that we can't get into that thinking that an event or a success can define us, because it cannot. And that is most unhealthy. Most unhealthy to be relying on something like that to define you. If you're a veteran, if you've been in battle before, yes, that's part of your story, and it's a good part. But even that can't define you. We can't live there forever and be like, that defines me. What I am now, what you are as a human can become nothing, meaningless or vulgar to you if the way we go about it is that for an event or a particular success to define us. And I began to realize that late in the show on Alone, late in the show, I began to realize that even if I win this, I'll still be me. But what is me? And that is what I needed to figure out, to change, and to have in my life as the prize. What is me? Because going in thinking, I'm gonna come home with this money for my family and that'll make things better, or nothing. You see, I've operated for the last quite a few years doing humanitarian aid work with my family on the thinnest shoestring budget. Thinnest budget. Always stressful. And I'm thinking, I'll bring that money home for my family, and that will fix a lot of things for my family. But then realizing that that can fix nothing. You can take off the stress for one round of decisions, and this is key. One round of decisions is, where do you live, what do you do for this year, etc. With the money that you bring home from a loan after taxes, you can only take the stress off for one round of decisions. And after that round, there will be round after round after round of decisions. So what do you have? You have what you are. And I begin to think about what I am. And I realized that if I come home with this money, yeah, that'll be nice, I'll have the money. But what my family needs more than the money is my family needs me to be solid. Because that's the only way we can face those subsequent rounds of decisions and be well, is if I'm solid. Then you think, okay, we'll figure out who you are, be solid, and still win the money. Wonderful, wonderful. But there came a point in time that I felt like, having found the happy, the peaceful, and the satisfied version of myself, to scratch on towards the money would be okay, be understandable, but inside me it would be arguing with the version of myself that I'd come to see should be what my family has. This is key. I can't believe I'm saying details like this. This is pretty private. I'm saying this on video, and I think I couldn't do this unless through a loan I became conditioned to divulging stuff on camera and being like, I'm going to be honest, because I do want it to mean something to folks. And maybe a demographic that's so special to my heart is the veterans, the combat veterans who do have this dam with unprocessed emotions behind it, who do have this thing that, you know, there's this mentality that gets built. The difficulties that you go through, you shut up about it because the deal is to go and accomplish, to execute, to win that fight. But in our family, we can't execute, accomplish, and win any fight unless we are well. This is a fact. Because our family doesn't need the activity that we can generate, per se, as we accomplish, like you would in the Army or the Marine Corps. That satisfies them. Nobody cares about how your soul is doing. A family senses the soul. A family senses the soul. And if you guys are following along with me in this, I hope that you'll take this to heart and reach out to me. I mean, just call. I'll give you my number. Just call and we'll talk about it. If you're at this point of being like, yeah, I see where I'm at, and I need to get free of that being defined by a moment in the past, that dam of unprocessed data in the memory, that awful catch point in the nervous system that can set me off. Your family deserves the whole, well you. And it's right there to be had. I believe that. So I guess I'll cut it off there, and I won't discuss any more about that, about my decision process for why I left alone. But this will at least give you just a thumbnail sketch, more insight into that, and to understand how I could feel. Like I said this, I'm going to put up this picture. I told them when they came, I'm choosing deliberately to leave because I'm not being forced to leave by anything. I can do this. I really believe that William and I could have been going on till Judgment Day. Nobody wants to do that. We want our families. But we could have, logistically and how we were doing in our bodies and minds, we could go on to Judgment Day. But I told the producers, I'm super happy. I'm choosing to do this deliberately, and I'm happier than I've been in years. And that happiness just stayed with me. You know, I came back to base camp, saw my wife. If you guys haven't seen that clip where I get back to base camp and see my wife, it's a pretty emotional clip for me. It's a good clip. Go onto the History Channel's website. It's like a 5-minute long special clip in there. It's part of the thing called The Ride Back, I think. You know, I'm going to get straight on to a different topic here. Let's dig into what faith means, what faith meant to me on a loan. I didn't expect that this would be a topic of discussion. I didn't go into a loan expecting that this would come up this way. But it has. It's on the show. I'm pretty open about it. I wish everybody could and would be wide open about what they believe. Just to feel that freedom to be open about it. Because I know that faith is private stuff, but I mean, we can be open with each other. You can be open with me about it, no matter what you believe. I'll respect it and treat it kindly, no matter what it is you believe. But I'm pretty open about faith on the show. But I didn't go into Alone expecting that this would be the outcome, that we would talk about faith, about what I believe, because it is private stuff. There's no such thing to me as a secret advantage that, if I pray, I'll win. That God will like me best and give me stuff that he would never give anybody else, and that I'll win. That's never been in my mind, never. I do ask God for things. I ask God for things on the show. I'm like, please help me kill this moose. I wanted it at the time, and I needed it, and I just asked. Had no thought that, well, this will make me special or anything like that. I'm not. Well, here's what it meant to me in the end. Simply the fact that God was with me. And that's all I wanted. I remember when I mentioned on the show, I'm convinced that God is with me. And that day I looked up at that sky and I just felt so certain, and I don't know how, so certain that God was looking down, that he was seeing my actions that I did, smiling. He was smiling. This is where things begin to change for me, even going back into the previous discussion that we just had about healing from the effects of death and trauma and stress and all this kind of stuff. I've been so conditioned all my life to just accomplish, and that's where I find my value. But I looked out at that land and I saw that moose, I saw other moose, I saw each animal. And I just knew that them doing their thing, just living, just going about their life, and God looked down and he was so happy with them. Like I was. I was so happy to see him. And I'm like, if I'm this happy to see him, if God created them, he's so deeply happy about it. And then I realized one day, just like an axe to the head, like that extends to me. It must extend to me, because I'm a creature. A strange and weird creature, but a creature nonetheless that God must have made. And if he made me, then he looks down and sees me in my natural habitat, hunting and doing my thing, and that he must be happy. He must look down on everything that he made and say, behold, it's very good. And I began right there, like things right there began to change for me. Because, and this is where I would go back into, try to address the veteran community, especially a community that's so close to my heart. If you've been oriented and conditioned, the Marines, the Army, everybody, you accomplish, and that's what value that you are. You can realize later on in life, like I did, that existing, that being the creature that you are, has a value. And that's what I think makes God really special. Is that without God, where would this value come from? There's no value to me besides what I place on it. My need for survival is my value. I want longevity for myself, but if God made me, hear this out for a second, it's weird. If God made me, and he looks down at this creature and says, if God made you and he says, it's very good, that places a value that nothing else can place. And you don't have to generate positive content by working so hard to make that value higher or lower. It's just there. That's the value that remains when humans are even degraded or enslaved. That's the dignity of human life and of creation in general, is that I think it must be the fact that God made it and he said, it's good. It's good. And I mean, call me crazy. I just began to feel that as I would see these animals and stuff. I'd be like, I'm a weird animal. I'm a creature, and God would look down on me and say, it's good. He's doing what I made him to do, what I created. He's hunting. He's surviving. He's being glad for life. You know, it's weird. That feeling went on, and that built into how I think all those, you know, survivor guilt, because I've lived against all odds, and a lot of other people didn't, very near me. I can't explain that, but this changes that and takes away the need for me to be guilty about having survived and lived. Because it's not wrong to have done that. It's good. It's good to live. You know, I'll live until it's my time. This is weird. Okay, I'll just boil it all down. Here's what faith meant to me on the show. No secret advantage. Nothing special. Nothing special over anybody else, because I totally believe that anybody who calls upon God has his ear. I believe that. If he's there, that's the way it must be. And so, what it means to me, just faith on alone, is it just means this. I asked, and he was there. He didn't make it easy for me. He didn't take away all the stress, but he was there. And that was all I could ask for. That means so much to me, more than I can ever relate or impart, is what that means to me. It regenerated life in me, which brought me right to the end where I was happier than I'd ever been. You know, that brings me to the last thing I want to say to wrap up my thoughts about Alone. I'll still make one more video to answer questions that I've seen on my YouTube channel, but my last thought that I want to impart about my journey on Alone, and it's finished, is that I hope that me finding such abundant life that helped me and healed me so much is maybe a good set of tracks that lead to life and love for somebody. You can, if you see something in it, then it's for you. Call me. We'll talk, you know, just find it for yourself. That's all. If you don't see something in it, then let's just enjoy the survival aspect of it and be good humans, you know, let's do that. I'm still going to do a few videos. I'm going to do like my cooking setup video and some things like that, but I hope that you guys will stick with my channel, as I'll be presenting some stuff. I don't know what. I have yet to imagine what we'll do here, but it'll be fun. See you guys next time.